This is a video for how to go about constraining and assembling the jack lift assembly in Fusion 360. So I've placed all of the inventor parts into Fusion 360, and the first thing we're going to place is the base. So we're going to drag my base out into our work area, and we just want to kind of keep it here. I could rotate it and mess around with some other things, but I just want to leave the base right where it is. And we're going to say, okay, I'm going to right click on base, and I'm going to go to ground. That gives it 0 degrees of freedom. It will not move. I'm going to click on the wedge and drag it out. And what we want is we want the hole to be facing the back of the object. So I'm going to rotate this around. I'm going to get my hand in here if it'll give it to me. I'm going to rotate it around about 90 degrees, and I'm going to go on ahead and say OK. And what we want to do is we want to place the front center edge of this object with the front center edge of our base. So we're going to come up to joint, and we want for ourselves a rigid constraint. And I want you to notice it's like I'm clicking on planes. It gives you a lot of different planes and a lot of different joints and things to click on. And I want this joint right here, this mid-plane joint, to mate with this mid-plane joint, and it'll come up and rest on top. And I'm going to say OK. And for the next constraint, we want to kind of flip around to the back because we want the screw we're going to place to go inside this hole right here. So I'm going to click on the wedge screw and drag it. And when I place the wedge screw, I want to rotate it around 90 degrees so it's facing the direction that we want. So I'm going to go to 90 degrees, and I'm going to kind of drag it off to the side a little bit because I want to be able to see it. And I'm going to say OK. And the constraint that we are going to place for the wedge screw is going to be another rigid constraint, and we want the center area of this part right here, kind of that center little axial point, to mate with the center point right in here, this little center point right here. You're going to see it's going to come in and it's going to place. Now we look down on the top of this. One thing we can do is we can kind of see this little gap in the back, and you can drag this in and you can create a little offset. So that's when I drag it in. Maybe that's a little too much. 0.1 might be a little too much. Maybe I want to do 0.05. So maybe I can come in and do ourselves just a little bit of a constraint. So maybe I want to go negative, excuse me. So I want to go negative 0.05. So I'm going to go negative 0.05. And that gives us just a little bit of a gap here. We can come in and mess around with the offsets, but for that, I'm just going to go ahead and say OK. And this allows us now to put together our jack lift assembly. So when you're making something in Fusion 360, there's many different types of joints that you can do. We mainly did rigid today, but you can also get into sliders and cylinders and all different kinds of interesting things. So that's how you put together an object in Fusion 360, and this has been a video on how to put together your jack lift assembly.